tienen más autoridad o aún quienes tienen más experiencia. Sin embargo, en el matrimonio se nos resulta más complicado el respetar a alguien que está en el mismo nivel que nosotros mismos.
Intrínsecamente, cuando hay una relación sentimental.
Good morning, Las Vegas. Today is Thursday, actually. It's Thursday, April 18th. It's 8 o'clock, 8:06. We are here totally live via Facebook. Alfredo Rosales from Source Realty. Yesenia, good morning.
Good morning, Yesenia Alfaro with
How are you?
Residential Mortgage Services. Great.
You're doing good.
I'm doing great.
You look great.
I didn't have a flat tire this morning, so I'm doing
You
good.
didn't. Victor, how are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm
Did
doing
you have
great.
a flat tire
I
this
had
morning?
a flat tire. I put some air on it, make it here. So when we're done with the show, I'm going to have to see if hopefully I will need a ride or a car AAA or something. 'Cause I don't have a spare.
If you do need a ride, let me know. All right. We can accommodate.
There you go.
Thank you. So today's Thursday, and we're here totally live. If you guys have any questions, you can ask us any questions you may have through our Facebook Live. Alfredo Rosales, Yesenia Alfaro, Victor Vasquez from Stewart Title is here today with us to talk about title.
Yes.
Talk about, excuse the redundancy, but, talk about preliminary title.
Yeah, title report.
Talk about what do I need to look for when I'm buying, when I'm selling my property, when I'm transferring title. What do I need to look for? What is a preliminary title?
Well, a title report, it's a history of the property, right? What we do in the title company, we look into the past. We look into the past of the history.
Wow.
Exactly.
Back to the future.
Back
to the past.
Back to the past, So we look, we do searches. We try to make sure we scrub everything for liens, judgments, anything that can affect that transfer of ownership to the new buyer. So it's very important that anytime you're buying a house, that title search is done, because you don't want to buy a house and all of a sudden find out that you close with a lien or something that can affect it, right?
Okay, that makes sense. And what usually can affect it?
Well,
what can you find in there that will be like, geez, maybe I should have looked for a prelim first?
Any unpaid loans?
Okay.
Like, for instance, let's say somebody got a loan and maybe paid on it, but their lender went out of business and did not record this document called a reconveyance, states that,
which happens a lot.
It happens a lot, and that reconveyance states that, hey, you pay for this loan, so you're good to go.
And you seem to find like two loans instead of one, and all of a sudden you're scrapping because you thought you were getting $100K, and then all of a sudden you're $100K.
Well, or we find out there's child support liens, and
I know, and don't even have kids.
Exactly. No, it is that we actually had a client that was under contract twice, trying to purchase a property, and with the prelim, we were able to find out that the seller actually had two liens against the property, two mortgage liens. According to the seller, he was unaware, so I'm not quite sure how that could happen, but we had to cancel 2 times.
Twice.
Same client. Twice.
Two at a time.
And a lot of the times, people get home equity lines of credit. And that
Do those show up?
Those show up, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a lien against the home.
It's a lien against the home. It's kind of like a credit card in a sense, but it's for a huge lump amount. But those go against the property. That will show up on your title report.
Well, any lien that you anything that you acquire for the property, most likely is always going to be tied in with the lien against the home. So we're talking about, the HELOCs or home equity line of credits. We're talking about the solar panels. We're even talking about some people that still are out there acquiring water filters for their properties. All those are liens that are tagged on the prelim because it's a lien that's against your property. So when you're trying to refinance, guess what, buddy? You have to pay those off before we close on the loan.
I know. And then I heard, I don't have a water filter system, but I heard they're like $4,000 and you finance them. So when you do finance one of those water systems, the most of the times go in the garage. Is that right?
Most of the time they do go in the garage.
Okay.
Most of the time.
So if
I've
it's
seen
like one of those, you might have a lien on your house.
Yes.
And sometimes when you do sign paperwork for that loan for the water treatment system, you don't realize that, it's a lien on the house.
And a lot of people don't know, and when they do a transaction, they're trying to sell or refinance and stuff like that.
You have to pay it off.
You have to pay it off. Or if they paid it off, maybe the lender or the company did not record the release to get that off. So now as a title company, we have to get everybody's help to call those people, get that removed, and a lot of the times they will take their sweet time. I do have to say, with some of the solar companies, they're really fast. Where they kind of got with a program nowadays that some people are refinancing or need to sell the property, so we need to be fast in getting what the title company needs.
Because we work on a time frame.
Like, all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I think real estate has changed so much that we're in the time of now. You know,
Right.
we have no time to, hey, let me get back to you. I mean, everything's an urgency. Same thing
It
in the
is.
title business.
The same thing with the HOA companies. A lot of the HOA companies are actually now reporting to the title of the property when you are backed up or
Yeah.
they're trying to foreclose on you. They're taking more extreme measures to be able to be in a position to be able to foreclose on the person. No.
And you
Now-
know what? In some HOA companies, and I'm sorry, they will take any little thing and try to put something in there. So, guys, if you guys have a violation, please fix it right away.
Yes.
You know, because what $25, it could turn into $2,500 in a heartbeat. So, just a little bit of advice.
So let me ask you. You mentioned earlier we talked about I have 2 loans, but one of the banks
Disappeared.
closed their doors.
Mm-hmm.
What happens to the loan?
Still active. So
So who
what
do you pay?
Usually, what should happen? There should be an assignment, another
Okay.
lender. You know, we've had some cases where there's no assignment recorded. You know, because we as a title company, we have access to different system, and it's
Right.
going to give us, okay, this bank transfer to this loan and stuff like that, or assign it. So we're pretty much stuck. We have to do a lot of research, and those transactions can take up a little bit of time. Or, you know, if the debt was transferred to somebody else, I mean, it goes into a Pandora's box that sometimes when we open it, we find out a bunch of different
Everything-
things.
Or it could be a
Yeah.
can of worms.
I mean,
too.
you're never a debt's never just going to go away. Even if the
course.
bank goes out of business, that is not going to happen. We have a lot of clients right now calling us. There is a big bank that is actually in the middle of a bankruptcy procedures at this moment, and we have a lot of clients calling me because they're receiving notifications talking about this company going under bankruptcy. They're like, well, what does that mean? I don't have to pay my debt anymore? I'm like, no, you do have to pay it. It might not be to that bank anymore, but they might assign a new service or someone else that you're going to be making that payment to. So, you know, good try, but it's not going to happen.
You know, and a lot of the times they do slip into the crack. I think I remember a transaction where, you know, the seller, they had a second, and they
Yeah.
hadn't been paid on it for a while.
Yeah.
And then he was trying to sell the house, and we asked for the information for the second and stuff, and he's like, well, I just haven't paid it in 2 years. You know, they went out of business.
And that was a situation where the guy
Yeah.
said, well, you know, they went out of business, so we didn't pay it because we didn't think that.
We didn't know who to pay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, well, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but like you said, if there's a debt, it has to be paid.
Yeah, it has
you
to be
know,
paid.
That's just the way
Well,
it
not
goes.
like your taxes.
Well, the same thing with judgments. The preliminary report that is obtained on all the transactions will also show if that client or that client's spouse has any judgments against them, because those need to be taken care of in order for the title company to issue a clean title or the title insurance.
And what you guys got to remember too, we were talking about the last show. Nevada's a community state, so as soon as people get married, it was yours is mine, and vice versa. That's including debt, right? So I had a situation where somebody was out of title, and then they did a homestead, but then they put themselves in the homestead. They name also, just by them doing that action. Guess what? Now the judgment that he had before, it went back into the property. So what he did, I think, before the judgment hit, tried to get himself out of title. But then when they record a homestead, they added the name on it. So just
the
added-
name popped up.
The name popped up.
Why would you put yourself on the homestead if you removed yourself from title?
Exactly.
I don't know.
That's,
Well,
that's
maybe
pretty
because they
bad.
thought they had the judgment, so they figured they'll protect the house.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
But
I mean,
you know, in the title world, you know, it's better to ask. In the title world, there's no such thing as a dumb question, because you know, I always tell people, you know, it's better to over disclose than to under disclose. You know,
Exactly.
and what we were talking about earlier. You know, we're friends, but when it comes down to being professional in the business, the thing I appreciate about you both is that you guys get me what I need, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to protect all parties involved,
Of
right?
course.
And of course, we're always here to do things right. I mean, like you just mentioned, we are great friends. But at the end of the day, when it gets, you know, talking about business is business. And sometimes I don't agree with Alfredo, or sometimes I don't agree with you. But hey, you know what? We always agree to disagree if we have to, and we move on.
and
and
I
I-
always call her afterwards.
And I do have to say about Yesenia, every time I try to explain something, like she wants
You
a clear
can't, dude.
answer.
You
But
can't.
why? But why? And that's one thing I really do.
I'm like,
admire
I don't have
about
time
her,
for
man.
this.
I'm like, dude, like seriously? But
Be like, send me an email.
Yeah, for the people that do know me, there's a lot of people that know me very well. You guys know I'm not just gonna take no for an answer. If you're telling me no, I need to know why.
Poor
And the
Kevin.
reason,
Poor Kevin.
and the reason why is because in order for me to explain something to my client, I need to be able to understand it.
Of course.
I'm not going to take someone else's word and just, pass it along to my client. I need to understand why it can't be done. There's always a lot of gray areas in everything in life, on the real estate side, on the lending side, and on the title side. It's to me, it's a matter of understanding why. Because if I don't believe it, and I don't feel convinced by what you're telling me, then there's no way that I'm going to pass that information along to my client until I understand it completely and I agree with it.
No, and that's a good way to work because we learn from every experience, right?
I remember one time we went to the county and she actually fought something and she saved her clients some tax money.
You beat somebody up over there.
I was like, wow.
No, the problem was that there was two properties very similar in square footage and area. There was a whole bunch of different things, and for some reason, the property taxes were about $1,000 higher on one of the homes.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, no, I need to find out why so I could explain this to the client. And yep, I went directly to the county and looked into it because guess what? Everybody makes mistakes.
Dude, I just stayed in the back, kind of like, have you ever been in those awkward conversations? You just
You're like I'm backing
you
out.
You just get your phone and kind of like pretend you're texting, but you're really not.
That sounds like my wife also. My wife is somehow like that. Like we go to the doctor or something, and she, the doctor will say this, and then she would tell me, well, why is it? I'm like, I don't know.
And speaking about wives, my wife, I think, is watching. So shout out to my wife, Lindsay Vasquez.
Oh, hey, Lindsay. But you know what? It is very important. I think the reason why I do that is because we can all continue to learn. Mm-hmm. Every day you can learn something new. And I do believe that the more that you learn, the more knowledge that you acquire, the better person that you'll be. And through this, there's a couple, even in lending, there's a couple of situations, a couple of guidelines that I'm like, God, that's such a dumb guideline. Like, why is it the way that it is? And there's been a couple shows where I talked to a friend. I'm like, hey, you know what? Finally, after me arguing so much about this and this is what we have been able to do. It took me a couple of years. We've changed this a while back now already, but it's been over a year that we made this change. But for a long, long time, I kept fighting and arguing. I'm like, why is it that even though the spouse is not staying on the loan, why can't she go on title at closing? And it was an argument that I had all the time.
And I know when Yesenia did something because like she'll call me to her office, be like, hey, this and this, and I'm like, just tell me yes or no.
I sat down with the owner of our company to explain about spousal leave.
That's all I need to know, right?
But that just shows you, like, what type of team you have, right?
Yeah.
Just to go above and beyond to get the answer that we need and stuff.
The same thing with the bankruptcies. Forever and ever, I used to always tell Fredo, it's such a dumb rule that if you're in the middle of a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you can get the loan done as long as you get the trustee approval and you could show proof of payments for the last 12 months on time. I'm like, but yet when you're done with the Chapter 13 bankruptcy, you have to go in the waiting line like everybody else with the regular Chapter 7 and wait for 2 years. Well, that's long gone. So we actually finally, after insisting, we looked more detailed into it. And yes, you can actually get a loan done right after a Chapter 13 bankruptcy.
Well, you know what, guys? And the same thing with the title world, right? We're in the business of risk assessment. We're at the end of the day, we're an insurance company, right? And I think maybe a lot of people don't view it like that. But there's certain files that we can't handle because of the risk. And it broke my heart that I couldn't handle a file last week, and another company did. But that's just the name of the game. There's going to be companies that won't be able to handle exactly. And the same thing, I had to fight some issues and stuff like that, especially when there's situations that have happened a long time ago. And I'm like, come on, this was 15 years ago. Is it really something gonna come back? What I mean? So it's just risk assessment.
No, and that's fine. And we help a lot of people. Obviously, we don't. I mean, we gotta look at the odds too. Yes. I mean, do we really want to get into this?
Absolutely.
Sometimes, like you said, risk assessment. We don't. Sometimes we make bad decisions, but we try not to. Yeah. And that's when we assess what we're doing so we can make sure that we help a client better. And if somebody else can help them in a better way, by all means. Yeah. Like, I'm that type of person, Yesenia, I think so too, that if we can't help you, there's nothing that I can do for you. I mean, because obviously you have different views of what I do and different views of what we got to offer. And if you feel that somebody else can offer you
Something
that,
better, yeah.
then by all means, whether it is or is not.
Sometimes better doesn't mean that. You know, I mean,
Exactly.
We've all learned. I mean, I've learned the hard way in certain things. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
Well, the important thing here is that, like Alfredo just mentioned, I know that we always go completely 100% out of our way to get something done. Like just yesterday, Alfredo and I had a little discussion, right?
What's that a discussion?
I was teaching Alfredo everything that about the debt to income ratio on a client.
She was not teaching me. She was showing me
No.
No, I was teaching him because
about a client not qualifying for what he wants. And I'm like, that's fine. I mean, it is what it is.
Alfredo says, well,
Yeah.
it comes in with more down payment, like this much more. My ratio went from a 59
It went like
to a
4%
56.
down.
And he's like, that's it?
It was
I'm
like 100,000 and only 4% down.
I'm like, Alfredo, it's a 30-year loan.
It didn't make any sense
I
to me.
said, and we're only increasing the down payment by $20,000.
I'm like,
How
well,
much
tell
do
me
you want
why.
it to go down?
I'm like, tell me why you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I can explain my client.
And I said, Alfredo, because I even got the calculator. Look, this is his income divided
She
by.
got the tape.
Here you go. It's
She got
right
the tape.
here. If you want to explain it, it's right here. Go ahead. Have a nice day.
hey man, going old school always works. Putting in fun, man.
I know.
But you know what though? I spoke to the client again last night, and I explained to him, look, sir, this is the way that it works. Unfortunately, you make about $4,100 a month, and your debt to income ratio can be above 50, and you have 2 car payments. And you have the mortgage, that your mortgage is going to be about $1,900. You wanted to buy a $350,000 home. I'm like, that's not going to work.
Wow.
But the problem is not that. The problem is that, oh, the car's not mine. It's my daughter's or it's my wife's. I'm like, yeah, but it shows up in your credit.
Well, yeah, and that's what happens when we try to be nice and do a favor.
Yeah.
You know, it might not affect us at that moment, but it will affect
Yeah.
us in the future.
In the long
you
run,
know?
yeah.
But it is
And
what
same
it
thing
is.
with title. I mean, I had a
Yes.
situation
Yes.
where I had a friend of mine that was trying to purchase a property. Okay. And I remember this. I guess he had helped somebody else get a property.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Come to find out that the wife didn't know.
Oh man.
This other guy
and not the wife needs to sign.
short sold on that property or foreclosed on that property. My client didn't know that guy foreclosed on that property. I guess they didn't talk
Oh man.
afterwards, or he never told them. Well, the wife found out the whole story about the friend and the house, and unfortunately they couldn't buy because of that. But
it happens a lot.
And it happens a
It
lot. I mean, you
happens a
find these
lot.
things in titles.
Well,
like,
I
what
had
is
a
this?
I had a guy a couple months ago. I mean, we couldn't. We tried to schedule the appointment for signing. He kept switching it until he showed up, and he straight up told me, "Guys, my wife doesn't know I'm buying this house."
Oh,
and I'm
nice.
like, I'm sorry, my man, but she needs to sign. She needs to sign.
Yeah.
And remember, needs to sign a
It
spousal
is a
leave.
sign, yeah.
I mean, the thing canceled. You know what I mean?
Which again, it's another thing that I know that I believe it is being worked at, at a higher level. But the whole problem with the wives having to sign a quick claim deed here in the state of Nevada when
Wives
we're
are
a common
husbands.
They're
state-
still useless,
Yeah,
I
a spouse.
think.
Yeah.
A spouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the point of them having to sign this document when in reality they're still
Yeah, it has
They're
no
still
bearing.
entitled.
Yeah.
Well, and I think and again, you got to understand with the funding institutions, I mean, if it's funding from Washington, their rules are a lot different
Right.
than ours and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I do get a lot of calls now going back to title. They're trying to sell the property. They bought the property single. Hey, you know what? I need your spouse to come in and sign a spousal deed. They get really upset. Well,
Yeah.
why? I bought this property single. Well, you got to remember, guys, when Nevada, it's a community state. So as soon as you got that, as soon as you get married,
Yeah.
say I do, that house.
well. Not only that, but now that deed specifies on there Victor Vasquez, a married man. As a sole and separate property, that you're selling this property as a married man now. So because you're selling this property now that you are a married man, that triggers for the wife to have to come in and sign that quick claim.
Exactly.
Well, at that point, it was single when you
Single,
bought the property.
yeah.
No, when they're selling the property, now the new grant deed or whatever, it says on there, right? It'll say
It will still say single on the prelim, but there was a vesting change, and now we will need the wife to sign. And I got a lot of arguments of it. But guys, it's a community state. So if you bought the property when you were married, your spouse will have to sign if you decide to sell the house. Same thing if you're buying, right? Same thing if you're buying.
Same thing.
You know, if you're married, your spouse is going to have to sign, you know. So make sure you guys communicate. There's trust. And don't hide that you're buying a house because, believe it or not, it does happen.
It's all going to come out. Like I said, on the seller docs from the title company, I mean, we just had a signing last week. No, this week, actually.
Is that the docs I picked up at 6 in the morning?
It was a docs that you picked from my office at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
Yes, you know, the same thing. The seller, when she bought the property, she was a single woman, but now she's married. So the seller docs for her to sign don't show her as a single woman anymore. Now they show her as a married woman. That's the documents that I'm talking about. Now it says on there, married woman. Therefore, the husband had to sign. Well, not only that, when she acquired this property, she acquired it with an uninsured deed. That's why she put herself on title. So the father-in-law actually had to sign as well. What is it? The affidavit? The affidavit that he had originally signed the original deed, putting the property. So what was a 2 people signing at the beginning ended up being 4 people.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question that, you know, I don't know if I should be asking, but let me ask you this.
Dude, we're live. Let's just ask it.
Yeah, sure. Might as well. Other than the service, because I know how the service is.
Right.
It's great. I mean, I love Nikki. Nikki's on it all the time.
Thank you.
You know, you're always available.
Thank you.
You do tricks.
I do magic.
You do
yes,
magic. You do
I'm
magic.
a former magician. Thank you.
How can you beat that? But other than that, what? And usually, I guess a buyer and a seller, or a seller or a buyer actually, does not have a lot of saying, or does not really care. I guess that should be the word.
About the
title company.
You know what it is? I don't think that they don't care. I don't think that they have the knowledge that they are able to choose who the title company is.
And that was where my question was going. Aside from the service, because that's usually how we work together, right? And we're friends. I mean, aside from being friends, how can a buyer, or what makes a buyer decide what title company to use?
You know what? If like Yesenia said, and like you said too, both of you guys are right. Where the public doesn't really know about title and escrow. However, though, they're getting very familiar. With title and escrow, they're shopping for rates and stuff like that. And I think when you kind of, in a sense, you have to listen to the professionals that deal with the title companies day in and day out. You have to listen to your realtor and loan officer and stuff like that, because when each transaction is very critical. And when we were talking at the beginning, everything's about now. So you do need a team that kind of understands what's most important to each individual. Like, for instance, I know what's important to you. Like, we're friends, but at the professional level, I know what's important to you, and I know what's important to Yesenia. So there's times where, like, I schedule my routes on the freeway where your offices are at, because I either know that there's loan docs that she's signing, and I'm gonna get the call, hey, you know what, you pick these up because we're gonna fun. And it has always happened, right, Yesenia, where like she calls me, hey Vic, I'm like, do it, I'm just literally down the street, I'll be right there.
Right.
So I think that sometimes the fees are almost the same across the board.
Pretty much.
But what I can tell you, it's really gonna be about the communication with the escrow officer that makes it vital. An escrow officer and that's willing to help out and put herself in on your shoes and on the buyer and seller shoes and stuff like that, because those transactions are stressful, man.
I know,
They're very stressful. So when both of you guys, or realtors and loan officers, when you guys are feeling the pressure, we need to understand it. We need to understand that you guys are feeling it, so we got to perform, because both of you guys have families.
Exactly.
We do.
Right? So
but we love working together, right?
We do, but if we can take a little bit of that pressure off,
Of course.
that's what we're going to do.
At the end of the day, it's about having a great relationship with all the parties involved to be able to get the job done, and that's one of the most important things. Well, I think time is up.
If anybody wants to call you,
If anybody wants to call me, my digit. No, my you can page me
your
my
digits.
beeper. No, my number is 702-379-8807. I want to thank you, both of you guys, for having me. This has been a really fun month just doing these shows. I think they're awesome. You guys informing the general public as far as title and escrow.
so we'll be here more often.
Thank you. Yes, if anybody has any questions for me, you guys can reach me at 702-310-6396. Again, 702-310-6396.
Or you can always call my office and set up an appointment just to call over the phone. If you have any questions, 702-337-3096, 702-337-3096. 3096. And we'll see you guys again on Tuesday.
Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
And it'll be a different time for me.
Go
so-
Knights, go.
Go Knights, go.